Humans, it's your boy Mike, the Herald of the Gods. Welcome back to the Culture Guys channel. I wanted to, welcome back to another episode of my collection of thoughts. So, I've been thinking about some things when it comes to the DCEU for quite some time. I would say maybe years at this point. Ever since the beginning of the Christopher Nolan grounded Batman DCEU universe. And I want to try to make this video quick and is the word concise and focused. Yeah. But if we start off with Tim Burton, going all the way back to the 90s. Actually, I think that was released in 1989, if I'm not mistaken. With Tim Burton's did the first two Batman films, which Tim Burton is a phenomenal director. His name speaks for itself, right? Like, he has a reputation. It is what it is. Those movies were great, and they kicked off the new universe of this more darker Batman. We were used to having before that. We were used to having the campy Batman from the old Batman series with Batman and Robin, and then we had the cartoons, and everything about it was very light. I think the comics at that point were kind of dark, showing Batman in a darker light, as a detective and shit like that. Then we get into the 90s, and then we look back at those just whack ass 90s movies that back then when we were kids we loved them. Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, those movies with the Riddler and Jim Carrey and Poison Ivy and Bane and shit like that. And those movies were good for their time, and I could see where they were going, with the neon thugs and shit like that. That shit was crazy. Looking back on it, that shit was crazy. But if you were a kid back then, like myself, like, you love that shit. You know what I'm saying? Shit was fire. Like, you was like, oh man, like, you going back to school the next day talking about it and shit. We loved it. But then came your boy Christopher Nolan, and he jumped off the Dark Knight trilogy, of course, as we all know, with the beloved Heath Ledger, rest in peace. And those movies went on to make billions around the world. But there's been a lot of, I thought I was the only one that was thinking about this, but shouts out to my girl Jester Bell. If you haven't checked out Jester Bell's channel, I promise you'll not be disappointed. Go check her out. She's got some dope content. But I had been thinking about this, but I was going to make a video that was going to separate the differences between MCU, what they're doing right and wrong, and what the DCEU is doing right and wrong up to this point. But when I came across Jester Bell's video, it triggered a topic that I had been thinking about for a long time, but I thought I was the only one. And that's, is the DCEU too grounded? And what are the problems with that? Now, this is my second time recording this video. The first one was way too long, and I went on a tangent about some shit. I don't know, man. I had a long day. But I want to keep it simple. If we're talking about where Batman is right now, I think that we had the Christopher Nolan trilogy, and it was great. We hadn't seen Batman in years, first of all, by the time that trilogy started. We hadn't seen a Batman movie in a long time. So we were thirsty for it. We got it, and it was super grounded, and we loved it because it was a different take on Batman than what we'd seen before, right? Then he makes the second, and when he makes the third one. But then when DC starts to look at MCU as the competition and go, oh shit, they got their shit together. They got a group up, a team mashup movie already. You know what I'm saying? It was like everybody had their own individual movies, and then here comes Avengers. They had their shit before DC did, which we all thought that DC would do that first with the Justice League. At least if you were a kid growing up, that's probably what you thought, So when they tried to branch off into adding more characters, what ends up happening is, like we look at the Man of Steel, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, was the first movie or the second movie that came after the Batman, the Dark Knight trilogies with Christopher Nolan. Well, no, I want to say it wasn't Man of, yeah, it was Man of Steel. The problem with the grounded DCEU, which for the record, let me say, I love grounded superhero stories. I love The Boys. Man, pause. Damn. Whoa. I like the Dark Knight trilogy, of course. And I even love what the Batman's doing, and I love what the new Penguin series. The new Penguin series is, man, it's so fire. If you haven't seen my videos, go watch my reviews on the Penguin episodes that have already come out so far. They are just one after another, just getting better and better. But do you see where this is going? The DCEU anchors itself on Batman. Batman makes for great movies because you can make relatable stories because it's so fleshed out, because Batman has no superpowers. He's grounded, and all of the people, most of the characters around him are grounded. And they've used Batman as the anchor and to sell and to make money, basically the money maker, time and time again since the 90s. Well, I'm sorry, since the 80s. He's been the main money maker in DC. A better example, the video games. Tell me a good the best superhero video game you can think of right now. I bet you only one comes to mind, maybe two. Batman and Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the Spider-Man games have been great. Most of them that have come out in the last, I'd say 20 years have been just exactly, it feels like Spider-Man. And that's the point, right? With video games, I want to be able to feel like the character I'm playing. You can do that with Spider-Man, which I didn't even think was possible. And you can do that with Batman, because Batman is a human being. He hops in a car, he has cool weapons and gadgets, and he doesn't fly around. And he's not the Incredible Hulk, or he's not, Iron Man. So it's easy to make a grounded Batman universe. But the problem I see with DC, which I never thought I'd say this or even see this, but you're using Batman to set the tone. When the MCU first jumped off before the Avengers came together, it started out, I think, with the Hulk. There was no grounded characters. Even Tony Stark, he's kind of like the Batman of that universe. But those movies were fantastical in a way. And I see that DC, they anchor themselves on Batman because it's their moneymaker, and it's easy to tell those stories that are grounded and pull you in because they're relatable. And Gotham is just basically the projects, and it's downtown Gotham is the city with the projects, and now the Penguin's exploring that even deeper. It's easy to do that with Batman. It's not so easy to do that with Superman. I think personally that might be the double-edged sword of the DCEU. I love grounded superhero movies. I love, when they take Superman, controversial take here, sorry, unpopular opinion, fuck you if you don't like it, but I loved Man of Steel. Why? I was kind of sick and tired of seeing, and God rest his soul, it had nothing to do with Christopher Reeves, because he was just an actor playing it. I love Christopher Reeves growing up. That was a Superman actually that I enjoyed, and the last Superman that I really enjoyed before the newer Superman in Man of Steel. So had nothing to do with anything. Henry Cavill. It had nothing to do with Henry Cavill or nothing like that. But I love the fact that while everybody else was complaining about, oh man, he's brooding and he looks, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. You see, we've never explored the idea of what if this man who has been raised as a regular human finds out he's not a regular human amongst regular humans. You humans. He's special. He's different. But thank God that he's on our side. He's a superhero. He's decided, when they showed him at the beginning of Man of Steel, when he was, had these different odd jobs, and, he's seeing sides of humanity that he knows are good. And he's like, it's giving him hope, which is what that movie was all about. Now, when General Zod and the gang pulled up, it was a different story. And I was like, okay, now I get to really let loose and explore what these powers can do to protect my planet and protect the humans. Because he decided to take that on his shoulders. He realized that with great power, blah, 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 I love that about him. he was brooding. He's trying to figure his life out. He's like confused. He's got, something. He goes to work and he's, these assholes that are there that are drunk and doing all kind of crazy shit and, cussing them out and all that. And he's got to maintain his composure. Even though he didn't really maintain his composure when he went and tied that dude's truck into a knot around that damn telephone pole. But, I mean, he could have done way worse to the guy. He could have, took his whole head off. My point is, I love seeing grounded superhero stories. I think the DCEU's problem is they keep anchoring it into Batman. So the tone is set now. So now when you introduce the Flash, like what the fuck are you going to do with the Flashpoint paradox if you constantly make the DCEU just grounded and real, and the realism, and take away the fantastical? Changing Oswald Cobblepot's name simply because it doesn't sound realistic is the dumbest shit I ever heard, but that's me. I've heard some really crazy names out here. Oswald Cobblepot is not crazy to me. So now his name is Oscobb. Cool, great. But that shows the mentality and the direction that they're trying to go in making things as grounded as possible. If Matt Reeves is trying to have an expanded universe, I'm curious to see what comes down the line. I'm curious to see what happens when Bizarro comes into the fold. I'm curious to see what happens when Wonder Woman's introduced. Green Lantern is going to be a true detective crime series. I love all of these ideas, by the way. And I have faith that James Gunn and Matt Reeves have teamed up and are going to do some great things together. And so far, I would just be honest with you, DCEU so far is 2 for 2. If we're talking the Batman and just the Penguin, just those two universes, which are related or connected, they're 2 for 2. So, that's kind of just some of my thoughts about it. I love, again, I reiterated, I love the DCEU. I love the grounded stuff. It's a change of pace from the MCU, which is loud flash bang colors at this point and a bunch of just characters thrown in from out of nowhere for nothing. And then if you miss a movie or you miss a whole story arc and shit, DC is starting off really, really good. They're starting off really, really strong. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with the DCEU being grounded, but when Clayface comes into the fold, when, like my girl Jester Bell said, when General Zod comes from another planet, there's another alien, or a bunch of aliens at that point, I'm just thinking of all the different scenarios and different, villains that have superpowers and aren't really grounded. What are we going to do then? I'm hoping that they stay true to the comics, and even, we treat a lot of these properties now, in my mind, as Elseworld. Every time a new Arkham game comes out, it's an Elseworld Batman game. It's Batman fundamentally, but it's not connected to the Batman universe unless there's a third wall breaking Batman cartoon or something that comes out. But I'm sorry, fourth wall. I said third wall, fourth wall breaking. But I think they're on the right path. I'm just curious. I just don't know how long they can keep everything super grounded and still maintain, stay true to the comics like a lot of us fans really want to see. I think the story writing, as long as the story writing is good, as long as the characters are well written, I think that's really all that matters. Once again, what are we going to do when the world's fastest man that can run, beyond the speed of light comes in? What happens? I personally love fantasy and fantastical things. I'm one of the brothers that grew up that loved everything that was not grounded in reality. There was a lot of niggas around me that loved, Boys in the Hood and shit, which I did too. I watched all those movies and loved them. But I gravitated a lot more towards the comics and the superheroes and X-Men and shit like that. And I find that as we gotten older, those directors, they grew up loving those same characters too. And for the most part, I think they have a lot of love for them and show that when they're creating. But I still think that sometimes, like your boy Todd Phillips decides he wants to go his own way and just fuck shit up for everybody, which I don't think he fucked it up for everybody. I think he fucked it up for himself. Yeah, as long as he don't touch nothing else DC related, I think we good. That's all the thoughts I got for this, man. I had a lot more, but I don't want to get too long-winded with this for real. It's already been long enough. Shouts out once again to Jester Bell. You know what I'm saying? If you got any thoughts about DCEU and the realism in DCEU, I mean, I'm curious to know what everybody else thinks, because this has been on my mind for years. And then I loved it, and then I saw where it could become a problem. But I'm hopeful that James Gunn and Matt Reeves does it right, which I think they will. Anyway, that's all for me. The guy said I have to go. Thank you for pulling up. Pull up in the next video. And don't do it for me. Do it for the God.